Welcome back to the C# Tower Defense series. In this episode we will be talking about health and how to add health to the enemies we have created. Technically we could use the label we have already created, but that would kind of mean changing the functions we have created and yada yada yada. Not really something I want to do. Instead we will actually create another label to display the health, and let's do that right away. In our enemy 2D scene, we have the first label, which I'm gonna rename name label, and I will duplicate it actually and rename the second one health label. Change the debug thing in them. It's gonna be enemy health. Okay, so for the positioning of this, I'm gonna add a VBox container, and just like the last time, I'm gonna use the layout transform position property to say -20 to position it and move it here on top of the enemy. So we're gonna have the two labels inside the VBox container. And let's see. So yeah, the thing is that they do spread on the right. Maybe we actually need, okay, let's roll back and get the labels out of the container and actually spread the container bigger than the labels so that they indeed do display properly centered. Until we can move it slightly here. Okay, we should be good. So we do have the enemy name and enemy health. Just to be sure that everything works properly, I'm gonna run the game and see how it looks like. We have the names, great, and the enemy health. Okay. So now I will go back to the enemy 2D and change the script. Alright, so in our script here, I will actually begin by renaming the first label we have created. So this is not gonna be label, but name label. And I will rename that name label. Okay, first thing. Second thing, I will create a second one. Export public label, and that's going to be the health label. And I will also create a new function, which I will name update health label. The thing is that I will actually not use any argument for this function, and I will just change the text in it. So we're going to have the health label text, which will update to something like 10 out of 10. Since we have changed the properties here, we will need to rebind those in the inspector. So we can do this quite easily, going back to Godot, building the project, and go in our enemy script here. So we have the name label and the health label. Right? Now let's run the scene to check that everything's fine. And it is not, right? So this is exactly why I need to run the scene all the time. It is important to see if you do have actually the intended result in the game. And here what happens is that we don't call on the method I just created. So on ready, let's update health. Gonna update health label. And now this should be fine. So we do have the 10 out of 10 properly showing. However, there's a big problem here. We can't control the health of the enemy by just using a string, and more specifically here, a hard-coded string. I will actually decide to create two new properties which will define the health of the enemy. So I'm going to create integers, public int, and I'm going to create the max health, and I will initialize it to 10. And also I will initialize this to a second property, to current health to 10 as well. Now we can look at how to display those two properties inside a string. So technically we can use a lot of methods. If you want to actually kind of understand how string concatenation and operators work, you can try to look it up. It's not very complicated. But the most common method you will be seeing everywhere is string interpolation, which basically means create a single string and use some specific formatting to throw in variables. And that's exactly what we'll be doing. in order to use this string interpolation, you do need to start by saying using the $ in front of your string, which now allows us to basically insert properties in there. So here we're gonna insert the max health on the right side of the slash, and on the left side of it, we're gonna have the current health. So if everything's right, we should be able to go back to Godot and actually run the scene again and still have 10 out of 10 over every enemy. Okay, so we're good here. Okay, so from here we can actually start with a simple exercise. Instead of initializing the current health here by saying that you want it to be equal to 10, what you're going to do is that you're going to remove this initialization, and you will make it so that when the enemy is created, the current health is actually going to match the max health. So you can pause the video and try to do that, and I will actually do it right now. So basically we do remove the instantiation here, the initialization, sorry. And what we're going to do is, before that we do update the health label. Actually, before we update all the labels, let's keep things in the same order. I will have the current health be equal to the max health, basically. So this should allow us to still have the 10 out of 10, even though we didn't say that current health is 10. Let's see if the game's correctly doing that. Yes, it is correctly doing that. Alright, another thing we could be doing is actually allowing us to change the export value and change the health of the enemy. Okay, so what I want you to do here is that I want you to be able to say that here we have a property that says I want to override the health of the enemy and I want it to be equal to maybe 25, and basically have, you know, your enemy match this. So this should be actually quite simple. You can try to do it without me. Here, what I'm gonna do is actually very simple. I'm gonna export this variable here, and basically because we have the current health already matching the max health, it's kind of already done, right? So all I have to do is build the game here and say that, let's see, in the world 2D, this enemy is gonna have 25 health and this enemy is gonna have 15. When I do run the scene, I do indeed have enemies with a different kind of health being generated. So it is kind of okay, I guess, except that technically in a tower defense game, you will not be creating the enemies in the scene before the game is running, so you will not really be able to change this property here by yourself. And if you want enemies to have a different health value, you kind of want to create, let's say, an initialization method. So the last exercise for this episode is gonna be try to create a public function that will allow you to say, alright, I want to change the health of this enemy and reset it to a specific value. So let's see how I would try to do that here. So obviously when I do something in this series doesn't mean it's the best way, it's just that it's the way I'm thinking of at the moment I'm doing it. So we're going to keep the update health label, and we're just going to create a new one. A new public void function, which is going to be initialize health, and I'm going to use an integer argument. So the first thing I want to do is to actually replace the max health and then, well, have the current health be replaced as well. So we're going to have max health equal to A health and current health equal to A health as well. And once it is done, I actually want to update the health label just to make sure that indeed we are, you know, displaying the updated values for this. So we can try this, I guess, by just saying that I'm going to remove the update health label and I'm going to remove this, and I will have initialize health with the value 25. just at the moment 25. I want to make sure that it works. Okay, so running this, we do have 25 health on all enemies. Now the last change I'm going to add to my enemy 2D script is that I will instead give the argument max health here, just, to update everything. So it's kind of weird to say that max health is going to be equal to max health, but with this export thing, it's just that we can use it here when we initialize the enemy by adding it manually to the scene tree, but also like when we use this function from the exterior. Yeah. Point is, we should now technically be able to have all 3 enemies have different health. Yes, 15, 10, 25. Since it's been kind of quick to do that, we will actually deal with another thing, which is a check health method, basically. The purpose of this method will be to run through a check that will say, if the health is too low, I'm going to delete the enemy. So basically, I'm going to make the enemy die. So I'm going to create a public function, which is going to be check health. It will take no argument. It will just check the value current health. And if it is inferior or equal to 0, we're going to queue-free our object here. Okay, and that's pretty much all it will be doing. So let's see if this can work. When we're getting the object ready, we will check the health of our enemy before we run the scene. And now let's actually go back to our editor and take the enemy number 2 and set its health to 0 and run the scene to see how this is going. So you see the enemy number 2 has a health of 0, so it is deleted and gets out of the way. So this is a function we will be able to use in the next episode, because in the next episode we will be talking about damages. So if you want to try to go ahead and exercise, so that's all I will be showing you today. I hope that was useful. If you did like the videos, think about liking and subscribing, all this kind of thing. You can always become a member to help the channel. There's tough times, not gonna lie. And as usual, you take care, you have a good time creating your games, and I'll see you either on stream or in the next video. Also, if you didn't know about that, we do have a Discord community, which is, when I mean active, I do mean that I'm checking it every day, where we answer questions and everything. So if you want to go here, say hi, or just ask questions, please do so. Alright, bye bye.